Good morning. It's July the 14th. Today we read from Matthew 6, where Jesus says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." I had a friend in seminary who had actually majored in Greek in undergraduate, so he would always walk around, and anytime the conversation led to the place where he could add this to a sentence, he would add where moth and rust destroy and thieves break in and steal. But he'd do it in Greek about half the time, and we'd all shake our heads and say, "Really, John, you don't need to show off." So I always think of that when I read that passage. What a moth going to destroy? Moths eat fine fabric, I guess, right? And in the ancient world, if you had something very nice to wear, that would, be a treasure that you would want to keep because you couldn't just run out to Target and buy more. It was clothing was something that you treasured because it was kind of rare, especially fine clothing. Or what does rust destroy? Rust eats away at metal things. So I suppose that was a danger in the ancient world as it is today. And then thieves will break in and steal your gold or steal your money or your silver or your fine items, your TV set, whatever it is that they want to steal. And Jesus says all of those sorts of treasures then are perishable. They're all going to go away. Eventually they'll all rust into nothing. The clothing will rot and fall apart and be gone. And the fine items that you have, somebody else will get, and you'll be left with nothing. So he says, lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, really, when you think about it. But then he says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. So whatever you value the most is going to be your treasure. That's what you're going to be pursuing. I read one time a book or an article or something years ago, and it said something about how ministers can be greedy. And I thought, well, that's the Joel Osteens of this world, or maybe, but the rest of us aren't greedy. We aren't driven by material consumption or material gain. And then the article said it's precisely because ministers so often are poorly paid that they're materialistic, because they're striving for, desiring all this these middle-class kinds of comforts that they can't really afford. And so that becomes a problem for many of them. And I thought, well, now that makes more sense, because I have felt that pressure, especially having, all these children, sometimes wondering, how are we going to get by? What are we going to do? Now, I'm paid just fine. Don't worry about me. But I think about these things, and I think, where your treasure is, if you're so worried about making a living or paying for things and getting more money, or you're just insecure and want more, that's where your heart is. And so then if your heart's there, your heart can't be following Jesus. And that's his point, I think, really. So let's evaluate our own laying up treasures and think about how our attitudes toward money and toward security and life, and how we're going to get along in a different way, in a different world. That's a good assignment for today. See you tomorrow.